Thank you so much. I guess first of all, congratulations on these nominations. I, what did it? I get this is what did it mean to be nominated for this project? That was one of my big ones because it's such obviously like really personal project for Robert. And I know Linda, you've worked with Robert many times before. David, you worked with him previously. Tracy and Suzanne, this is your first film with him. I guess like what? No, you worked with him previously too, three times as well. So I guess like what did it mean to be nominated? I guess for this project. I guess Linda, we could just go through, but I'll start with Linda because you're on the left side of my screen.
Okay. Oh, it's a complete honor and fabulous. And it's a tribute to Robert's unbelievable detail-oriented incredible leadership, I think.
Suzanne, how about you? What was it like to get nominated for this? It's a first time nomination for you.
Yeah, to be honoured by my peers in my 48th year is amazing, and yeah, I'm really happy about it.
Yeah, Suzanne.
Oh, Tracy?
Tracy.
Tracy.
Tracy, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. We're beside each other. Same. It's a lot of what Linda said as well. It's a lot of this is for Robert, like that we were able to put his vision in there. So it's an honor.
And David.
Yeah, I mean the same. It's a massive honor, and it's amazing, and it's such a wonderful movie. Yeah, and the nature of the film and everybody that worked on it, it's a delight to be involved in it. Absolute delight.
You mentioned like the detail of Robert's work. Obviously, I think that just is apparent. Like in every part of this feels like so handmade, right? For lack of a better word, like very tactile. It's like an old like just saying this to Jaren and Craig. It's like just very it feels very handmade and like just very like an old school movie, right? Like that kind of thing. And I guess where for you with the costumes, where does that start in your like in your collaboration with Robert and making like coming like devising all these looks and coming up with how it will look? I guess where do you start in the process and stuff and making sure it feels like the rest of the film, right? Like all you guys are working together. But how do you do it? I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it starts with the script, and then obviously, Robert and I discuss all the characters, and he gives me backstory where he can. I start reading, and the more information I can gather and try to get an understanding of the period and the place, because this is 1838 Germany, which is, somewhat different from, say, the same period in England or North America, and then try to relate that all back to, the I guess psychology is a pretty big word, but the characters that we're dealing with, and what choices would they make of the clothing, because costuming is clothing, it's just a different period.
Mhm.
So what choices might they make that inform an audience about those characters, even if they don't speak, you know? So it is really ongoing. Robert, he writes into his scripts the main location for his protagonist and main characters, but then he also goes into two, three, sometimes four different other locations. And because we were trying to, and have done in the past too, in other films, The Northman, it's a similar sort of situation. We were trying to depict the folk costuming or the local costuming as accurately as possible. So rather than just sort of, making things up, we try to find sources, illustrations, written accounts, whatever, of what that folk costuming would look like in the Carpathian Mountains throughout Romania. Robert doesn't speak Romanian. I don't speak Romanian, and so we really rely on finding historians, or in the case of Afram, I think, or sorry, Florian, I think he a filmmaker as well. He's a historian and a filmmaker, and so really trying to respect the culture that we're representing. So it's ongoing, and it's very like a very deep dive into all of these things.
And for Tracy and Suzanne, for you guys, how does that like reflect in the makeup? Obviously, like we're talking like period makeup here, but like like how much research are you doing into that as well and making the hair and makeup look like that it does, and also the way working with like Linda's costumes as well. Like, how do you kind of figure that out?
It's total collaboration. It's collaboration with Robert and the art department and Linda, because you have to, yes, it's the world that those characters inhabit, and therefore Ellen's hair is, she would be able to do that herself. The Hardings is a completely different thing because they've obviously got staff. It's a, you know, it's as if I'm not there. So that's how that reflects. And it's so it actually, with all that collaboration, it aspires to a truly classic piece of filmmaking, I think.
And it's also keeping, for me, everything realistic with their lifestyle. Like with Willem smoking the pipe, we do nicotine stains in his mustache, teeth, and hands. Lily keeping her like very luminous, and bringing her in and out of her different possession scenes, and everyone's facial hairstyles, and not doing like a traditional beauty makeup, like keeping everything like contour, highlighting, enhancing in ways that don't distract from the characters. And everyone is gone through from number one down to the background. Everyone is tested and gone through, and their looks kind of finalized.
It's amazing. Do you mention the possession scenes are obviously like incredible, and Lily's so just amazing in those scenes. I just cannot believe how good she is in this movie. But I guess like how did like there are probably like the subtleties of making sure that looked right, and like how you kind of like did that. I guess like how much trial and error was there in terms of making that like look the way it does in the finished film.
Very conscious of the fact, especially with the hair, because it's quite a lot of it when it's down, is that it does not overtake, you know, her performance, Robert's vision, the lighting, everything, because it's just part of that. The hair doesn't get paid to act, so therefore, you know, it's just part of it, and so you have to be really conscious of that. So.
And with me, it was just the levels and working with Jaren's lighting as well, and just seeing how far we could take it before it started to look like makeup, because we did things like enhancing the veins, you know, just the contouring stuff. So it's figuring out the 3 or 4 stages or 4 stages of possessed, how we could come in and out of it and have it look natural, like realistic.
Yeah. We pull it off. It's really it's really great. It just looks so good. David, speaking of pulling it off, I love the Orlok design is obviously like amazing. I think it's just an incredible transformation. One of the things I was wondering was like the character looks nothing like Bill at all to me, like at all. And I guess like first to starters, like how much do you want to like how much are you trying to like keep like what are you keeping from Bill when you're creating Orlok, I guess? Yeah.
So interesting. I mean, everyone, when the first shots came out online and people going, it doesn't look like Bill, you know, where's Bill? This was the beautiful thing, is that it didn't have to look like Bill. But to be honest, all the shapes that you see in the way that it's sculpted, they reflect his natural bone structure, and complement his eyes. I mean, you really, really work with the artist like everybody else does in that way. I'm working with a life cast of Bill. It's very static, and you don't have to over accentuate things too much, because you know Bill's going to bring in his own work. But you know, you don't want to create something with a permanent frown, or you know, all these kind of shapes. It's not necessary. So it was, to be honest, the most important thing was to be able to step back and remember that this is a Transylvanian nobleman, you know, of a certain age, and it's gone terribly wrong for him. Things aren't going well.
No.
You know, and it's because we're dealing with the rot, you know, we're dealing with the decay. We have an awful lot of things going on, but beyond all that, I personally think there is still a little bit of kind of beauty to his look, his face, his features, you know. And so I was kind of going back and doing an original sculpt, which kind of showed who he could have been before it happened, which gives me information to be able to sink him and take him somewhere else. You know, so it's the same, and a wonderful script, and Robert's input was amazing, and Bill's input, you know, so it felt incredibly natural and organic, And it was an absolute pleasure to do.
What kind of input was Robert like providing, I guess, like in this, and Bill, I guess both of them.
I mean, Robert, we had an initial conversation before I'd even read the script. And I remember I was very excited, like a puppy, kind of jumping all over it because it's effects. And I said, what happens? Does he transform and then he regenerates? And Rob's going, no. And I said, but how many different stages are there? And he says, one. And I'm like, and you could feel deflated, but actually it draws a fabulous challenge. It was how we're going to create a look where he's one sculpt, one creation, which has to travel from his sarcophagus on that water across, and then to the end of the movie, where he's with Ellen on that bed. So it was a long journey as far as having to pace that and make the coloration change as he comes from sarcophagus, and and then he's seen in daylight, and he's seen in the castle having conversations and everything. So he's got a lot to do within that, and he has to look and feel real and not sort of give the game away as to who and what he is. It's a mystery sort of character. It's a beautiful thing to have to figure out. There's a lot of subtleties in there, and you have to be really careful and respectful of that.
Yeah.
Really wonderful too with David. And so Robert, Bill, David and I met at Shepperton Studio where David was working on the appliances. And seeing Bill together, because the makeup had been applied, and I brought mock-ups or toiles of the various costume pieces, not in the right fabrics, similar weights and test boots and things like that. And to see Bill for the very first time put all of that on, and then just go off by himself and walk up and down the hall and experiment with things, and to hear those boots on the linoleum was pretty creepy. And then the next time was in Prague, and that was the next stage. You had worked more, I had worked more. Everybody had kind of got further with lighting, and Jaron was testing a little bit of the lighting at that point, and there was another leap. And then to see when we actually did have things at a point where we could do the test, the first screen test with lighting, and by then Bill had a number of fittings with the costume, and I always gave him time to kind of work with it and to feel it, and it just was growing and deepening, and it was really, really wonderful process to watch, and then obviously on set.
Oh yeah, when he turns up on the first day, and you can hear his click, 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 his feet as he's coming in, the sound of it, and everybody goes quiet. Because he's so tall, and his presence with the great costume, and it's just amazing.
Well, the height is amazing. I guess that was one of the questions for you, Linda. Like, no, like he's so big, right? I think he's like with the like in the boots and everything. It's like I could be wrong, but I thought I read he was like 6'7". I mean, like almost like that's like an NBA player. This like how did that impact like what you were like putting him in, or how it would fit on him in the costume, right, with the whole thing, I guess.
Bill's already very tall.
Okay.
And he lost weight for the film. And so then to do the boots actually in reality in history would have been these beautiful little leather mules with a leather sock that slides into the mule. They have steel heels that are kind of horseshoe shaped, but that seemed a little bit precarious. And so we actually constructed them all in one. So that gave him another 4 inches. And also the bulk of everything that he was wearing, particularly the mente, the very large, extra long sleeved overcoat that's all fur lined, and that worn as a cloak or a cape, really meant that Bill could kind of disappear into it when he wanted to, and just have those lovely, crazy alien spidery hands, and the very large kolpak fur hat that he had. Meant that much of the rot that was on his head could be obfuscated for quite a long time. So it didn't hurt that Lily was tiny.
Yeah.
That really, kind of was apparent at the very end. But then when he was playing opposite Nicholas is tall. And so that I think was maybe accomplished by Nicholas being seated, Orlok being standing in some of those first dinner scenes, and then the chair that he's seated in is like the very large chair. So I think that everyone was very conscious, whether it was Craig and set deck in terms of the, or props, the things that were being used were scaled to the size of grandiose and and really of a different period than the 1838 period that the majority of the story is set in. We get this other little time warp, when we go into the castle. And it's just another layer that Robert so beautifully adds to these things.
Yeah, Tracy, you mentioned Willem Dafoe before. I wrote down this because I was like, a lot of time I feel like in hair and makeup, the male characters are always given a short shrift by maybe the audience, but this one I feel like all the men have these incredible looks. Like obviously Willem's look, I just feel like I wrote he looks more Willem Dafoe-ish than I've ever seen him look, if that's possible. You know what I mean? Like just like the platonic ideal of what Willem Dafoe should look like. I guess like just starting there, like how did you like
Things like that.
how did you like get like that like how did you guys work together to create his look and like how he would look on the film? Because it's just he's so striking, it's incredible, I guess. So.
It is. Do you want to start first? Can you talk
Yeah.
Okay. So Willem and I went to look at the sets and we'd seen the costumes and we went to have a look and sort of so we realized what world he inhabited, especially his room where he lived. And then it became clear that his hair would be quite woolly because that attracts dust and everything, and it wouldn't be. So we just built on that, and and he was a man of many cats.
Yes.
And, so it was all that sort of thing that we wanted to reflect subtly.
This is the third film that I've done with Willem with Robert, and Willem is extraordinary, and I'm sure that this is true of hair and makeup as well. Like he really has very strong opinions about what he wants to feel like and why are we doing this. How does this relate to the character? How does this relate to if it's scene oriented, he wants to speak to that as well.
I wanted to ask a little about the finale actually too, because David, I think you mentioned this too in terms of like the growth of the way Orlok kind of the resolution of the film where Orlok ends. I feel like that sequence at the end. You have all of you probably working together, obviously, because you have Lily. Lily's character has to be, look a certain way at that point, and we're even the lighting, everything is different at that point in the film, right? Because it's like daybreak, so I guess like how did you guys work together in creating the way the characters would look in that final scene, I guess. You like Suzanne and Tracy, do you want to start in terms of Lily and like where she is at that point, where Ellen is at the end of the film?
Well, Ellen, that's her most possessed look. So it's keeping her still beautiful in that moment. So keeping her luminous, doing the veining so it looks like it's under the skin. But she's kind of her possession is like a weird content at that point. So it's kind of portraying that as to a what's happening in possession. So yeah. And she was as well naked, so it was her whole body.
Right.
Yeah.
And for Orlok, it was a discussion about what can we do or what are we going to do for this, because we don't want him to look kind of really grisly and grim 100%. So it was the thought was to mute it slightly and make him slightly less, colorful in many ways. Just so if you notice, his tone is very subdued and his coloration is quite, set back, and his hair is much better than it was ever before. He's been to the but so he's
in that final moment also the incredible ethereal and vulnerable and feral and vulnerable,
totally.
like completely comes across with
he's much
Orlok
more that it's interesting that the vulnerability is very, very true. You for the first time, you can sort of see that, it's not this kind of rage or anything, it's just this kind of, the place that he's gone here, and it's amazing. I think it is very different, isn't it? That entire scene.
Yeah,
into a completely new place.
And with Lily Rose as well, you know, I mean, she's
Yeah,
She's at peace.
yeah.
she's at
She's
peace. She's
Yeah,
come full circle. She's rid of Orlok.
yeah.
She's saved Hunter,
And
and
they know it.
it's all
They know
there. And she looks like the maiden, you know,
Yeah.
like the
It's well,
Gothic.
it's actually Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
So it's that
Or
thing of
conclusion.
life, love, love's lost.
Right.
What you sacrifice for love, all in that one scene.
Yeah. It's really amazing. David, you talking about like the vulnerability there too. In terms of like your work with the prosthetics, is there you've done so many obviously incredible work in your career. I guess how do you like making sure the actors like that vulnerability is able to come through the prosthetics? I think is something you're obviously really good at, right? Like so how do you like do
Well,
you consciously think of that? Yeah, I guess like how do you do it?
Yeah, I mean, it is about, the coloration and making sure that there's nothing too grisly upon him, just setting him back and letting Bill take over. And I think it is Bill more than ever doing what he does in that particular scene. It's it's quite a serious scene. The destroying the things you love is in rattling around in his mind. That's all he's ever done, and it's sort of I mean, it's a very potent scene.
Yeah.
The physicality of that scene is pretty incredible
Yeah.
because, we do see the bite with
Yeah,
Nicholas
yeah.
in the castle, but we really feel
You
and
really,
hear.
and the sound,
And
the crunching.
and the
Oh.
reverberation through his whole body and all the prosthetic in his back, and Lily handling that rotted back so gently. It's
It's
pretty
true, and it's
incredible.
very slow. The movements are very slow and controlled, orchestrated. And it works with the music as well. The whole nature is a tone and
Yeah.
a soft melody. Yeah. It's
Yeah, I
great.
mean, like I forget who said it before, but like, you're right. It's like it really is like all of you. Like, maybe it's not like I'm sure it's like this in all the films, but I feel like with Robert's films, it's all of you guys working in such collaboration. Like it's hard. Like you can't even like one thing doesn't work necessarily without the other. Like you're saying, like the sound and the music and the makeup and the hair and the costumes and all of these things, the lighting and the sets are working together, right, to create this movie basically in a way that I think people really respond to. Obviously.
Absolutely. I personally see it like a musical score. If somebody's playing a wrong note, we're going to know about it. All of us are on the same page, with the same music
With Robert
notes.
as the conductor.
Yeah, and it's and and you fall into it, and it becomes that symphony.
For I guess like I know Robert's got a lot of other projects in the works. I imagine he'll probably calling some of all of you maybe perhaps or some of you to work on future ones. I guess like what do you like for like what have you like or what do you like most about working with him in terms of like and like how he's evolved I guess as a filmmaker over this like 10-15 year period where from The Witch to now basically.
He's an amazing collaborator. As I think any of us would attest, we can bring to the table research, technique, so much. But if the director doesn't want to bring it on board and doesn't want to, utilize, it really is for naught. And so it's almost the reverse with Robert, it's like he's there raising the bar and raising the bar and raising the bar and raising the bar. And it's really truly a joy because in the end, it's really difficult, but it is so satisfying to see the results of how everything has been stirred in the pot and it's all together and it's of a kind,
And balance.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, I've been lucky to work with a lot of auteurs in my career, and I have to say Robert's up there. And to have the collaboration, but also as Linda was saying, to have a proper discussion. I mean, I'm never frightened of saying what I think, and sometimes challenging, things so that you get to the right place and it looks right. So yeah, he's up there.
And Robert's always there for conversations as well, because sometimes something might come up the day that we're shooting something, and he's always open for discussion, even in the last moments about stuff. It's just it's collaboration, teamwork, and the balance, the openness.
It's really great. I feel like the other thing you could tell like like when I hear other filmmakers talk about this film, like Sean Baker was like, I got to talk to him and he was like, that's the best movie the whole year. He directed, obviously, no, but like the people, like filmmakers, like I saw Todd Field, like talking to Robert about this, and I know Guillermo del Toro. Like it's like you could see, like I think
Yeah.
he's like really like filmmakers understand how really special he is. I think as an auteur, like you guys are saying, I just think it's like he's really great, and it just like keeps getting better because I think this was obviously such a huge success. Thank you all so much for doing this. I really appreciate chatting with you. It was great hearing about this film. And thank you again, and congratulations on these Oscar nominations. It's really amazing. So,
Thank
congrats.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good one.
See?
Bye.